Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your 2022 Oakland mayoral candidate. Well, it's been quite an interesting year. Our presidential race started out with a hot topic, UBI, and it lasted quite a while. And then when Andrew Yang withdrew from the presidential election, then it was kind of a dead subject for quite some time. But here in California, a city, Stockton, California, actually went ahead and tried UBI. And last week, we had Oakland Mayor Schaaf talk about UBI, which is Universal Basic Income. And under Andrew Yang, it was the Freedom Dividend, which was $1,000. Libby and also the mayor of Stockton, they're looking at $500 on this program, and it's all publicity stunt because there's really no meat to the entire story and to what they're talking about. There's a lot of support from the voters who it will affect the most, as far as the middle class, and the upper class voters has no interest in them, and they're going to vote it down. And there's not a lot of support for UBI to begin with. Last week, if you tuned into Libby's town hall meeting, there was an introduction of the program that the mayor of Stockton ran, and it was a very limited test, and that test was really skewed so that they got the results that they wanted to get. And how I mean that it was skewed is that they didn't have it available to everybody. It was limited to certain individuals with certain qualifications. One of the qualifications that would have really thrown their numbers off is if there were single recipients. Yeah, they didn't include any single recipients, and definitely no single homeless recipients. So this was a controlled test. All the people were housed in some form, and so they probably worked or had some sort of small income, and so it was very limited. And then we had families, couples that had children. So it was very, very skewed for the results that they wanted to get. And so a lot of that can't be believable. And plus the results that was spoken about last week was only 6 months of research because the money ran out. The money didn't come from any government organization, didn't come from taxpayers. It was paid through a large organization to fund the test. And that's what they did. They funded the test. There's some ongoing funding, which looks like has happened, and so they're going to continue that test. Libby wants to bring that to Oakland. Well, when Andrew Yang talked about this, I can see this being very beneficial because there are a lot of states in our union that don't have a welfare system. And so that welfare system, if they do have one, applies only to food. And California is very unique in the system that we have. And how do I know? Well, I'm one of the recipients. So I know all about the do's and don'ts and the benefits and how you can acquire them. So we already have UBI here in California, and it's right here. This is California UBI, because these are your basic income benefits. It, in most cases, it supplies your cash EBT, meaning that you can use the money anywhere. You can go to any local ATM or bank and draw the money out. Then there's also the food benefit on the same card, and then that gives you a dollar amount that can only be spent on food. No clothing, no alcohol, no tobacco, so there are limits. And believe me, these folks here, they know what you're buying. They document it. It goes to them. And so the UBI that Libby is really talking about is a joke, because here it is right here. It's already implemented in California. It's called electronics benefit transfer. So, but for the states that don't have it, it could be a real benefit. Not much of one, because number one, the benefit solves nothing. All it does, it continues to perpetuate the problems that we have already. And so it doesn't do anything other than give you some temporary relief from the agony that you're going through right now. But that agony is going to return. You know, believe me, it returns. With this card over the years, I've had food benefits. When I didn't have my SSI, my California food benefit was $350 a month. And then I also had a cash benefit of $550 a month that I could use to spend for anything that I chose. So, you know, that's $850 of benefits. And then let's say I were to get that today, and Libby somehow found money to put another $500 in my pocket. Well, this is how I would get it. I'm already pre-qualified in the program. You have all my information, and you know that I'm broke. So, the UBI that Libby is talking about, I know who some of the funding sources are that she's going to go to, because I talk to the same people. One of them that she's going to go talk to is Mark Benioff over at Salesforce, because he's contributed to Libby some of her programs. Oakland Promise, he sent some money, and then to an Oakland program here not that long ago, he sent some money. But then, you know, that money's just lost. It really doesn't benefit those that it's intended for, because it never gets there. And that's the sad part. We know Libby's a crook, and she's been caught a couple of times already, taking more donations from her developer friends, which have caused all the problems here in Oakland with the overpriced market rate housing, and that's all they build. And then we have some other developments with Libby and how she arrives at some money. But anyway, I've been talking about some programs here on how to turn homelessness around, create affordable housing for everybody. And so here it is. It's called PATH, Permanent Access to Housing. That's it. And through the entire PATH program, you're going to be able to see your entire direction. You're going to see what steps you need to take to get to the next level or the next PATH step to progress. And the bottom line of PATH is to make housing affordable and home ownership affordable once again. It's based on a lot of the old principles that came out in the 50s, right after we came out of World War II, and the country was on big program to get everybody housed all across the nation. And so there was a lot of housing developments created for the first-time home buyer. And that's what we need to bring back, because the sad part is that Libby and the real estate market are developing and building for their own profit long term, because they're not selling and making homes for you to own. They're making homes and shelters for you to rent. So they keep you permanently impoverished and enslaved. Yeah, that's not a good thing for any city. With PATH, there's two types of housing, and they're on the same property. In typical housing construction here in the urban setting, we build to the density of 6 homes per acre, or that's the intended goal, is to build 6 homes per acre. With my PATH program, those same properties are built with 25 homes to an acre as the maximum density. So very different. And then everything in PATH is going to be eco-friendly. We're building clean and green. We're using renewable energy, wind power, and we're using materials that are renewable and recyclable. So there's a lot of really good things with this. It's a whole new type of housing concept. It's based upon home ownership, and the city is supporting that through providing the property through the City Land Trust. The City Land Trust provides the property, certifies the HOAs, and then private industry takes over for the construction after all the plans and everything are submitted for the proper building permits on those properties. And it's a very good situation, because we remove a lot of the bureaucracy that a lot of cities put on construction. This streamlines and speeds up everything. There is some fees involved, but the good part is that the home ownership, each home sits on an Oakland city land lease. So you're paying for the home, but you're not paying for the land. You have a land lease, so you have a guaranteed spot. And so the cost of your home is the cost of your home. It's not based upon what the city puts in there, because the city's not involved in the construction and the application of the home. That's completely upon the resident of that home, hence home ownership. We only want home ownership in PATH, and then that brings up the numbers, because right now here in Oakland, the home ownership numbers are very low. We're at 38%. The average for a healthy economy is 62%. We're a long ways. 38% as compared to 62%. That's where we need to be, 62%, and that's only average. So we're way behind. We need to create a lot of homes real quick. And the nice thing about PATH, there's 2 types of housing on the property. So the housing is divided equally on the property, and the maximum or near maximum number of homes are allowed to be constructed on that property. And we have some expansion modules also that are in the development stage. So there's a lot of different ways that we can create this housing and be affordable. Yes, there's going to be some fees for living in these HOAs or tiny home villages, and what those fees do, it covers helping to assist with the legal aspects of running an HOA until the HOA is fully operational and can operate under its own guidance and has its own legal team and everything in place. As a typical condominium HOA or HOAs like townhomes, like in Alameda. I know a little something about how HOAs operate because I was a HOA president when I was age 28 out in Alameda, city of Alameda. And so I was HOA and president for a year, and then also sat on the board for an additional year until I moved out of Alameda. So I know something about how HOA governments work and the necessity and the certification of those HOAs. And you say, well, anybody can set up an HOA. Well, that's not exactly true, because you have to have the city and the city council to kind of go along with the process of certification. Because this is an alternate government that's going to be working with the city and for their own independence and their own values within that HOA. So HOAs vary greatly, and having been a past president of HOA and then seated board member on several others, I think I know what I'm talking about. I've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly on these boards, putting some together and helping to establish the hierarchy. And it's a job, and it's a real job. Here, once we get the HOA established, then property can be looked at for designation and certification for that certified HOA. And those properties come through the City of Oakland Land Trust. And those properties, those folks, those HOAs, governments can go out, go look at those properties and get pictures, get information, and then get an application for an HOA tiny home village on that property should they find that it meets their needs. And by having these with sanctuary housing and also heritage housing on each of the land trusts, we begin to start addressing some of the long-time issues here of Oakland. One of the longest issues is housing for teachers. Housing for teachers has been a sore spot going back to at least the 80s that I'm aware of. In fact, I was one of the students in very first Oakland teacher strike back in 1978. I was attending Oakland High School, and the Oakland Unified School, or actually it was called Oakland Public School District, OPS, Oakland Public Schools. They went on strike for the very first time. I was in that class like I said, at Oakland High. I was on the newspaper staff, so I took pictures of the event, and so it was a very interesting time back then. And so I know a lot of the turmoils that go on with school teachers, affordability of living in the area for the teachers has been a very big issue here in the Bay Area. That's why we have really low test scores, because we can't keep good teachers because they can't afford to live here. And so with sanctuary housing, this gives them the ability to have a place to call home and become real community members. They can actually live in the community close by to where they teach. And so that's an important factor for our students and the education system of Oakland. We need to keep good teachers, and we need to keep them housed here in Oakland. So that's one of the things that we address. Also, this addresses medical and personnel. We have medical personnel at the hospitals, at clinics, the rescue teams that show up in the ambulance. These are all medical teams that are essential to Oakland. They will also be available to seek sanctuary housing status and be issued a land lease. That land lease has some stipulations, and that stipulation for sanctuaries that they remain employed through the city of Oakland or Alameda County, and that way the city-county benefits with them living in the community and their family. This also starts to address some of the issues that we have with a lot of law enforcement. I don't know where we're going to go with law enforcement, but we have to realize that there's going to be some sort of law enforcement agency in the future, regardless of where we go. And one of the biggest problems that we've had with law enforcement is that over 80% of them don't live in the community that they serve. And that's a huge issue. That is a huge issue. And so by requiring that 80% to actually live within the city limits for their employment, and housing would be conditional upon that employment for the city, or if they work for Alameda County and in whatever law enforcement role may be at that time, they may be able to seek out housing also through sanctuary. And by them also being connected to the community in the neighborhoods, that makes them not only more visible, but also more reachable, and they get to know you. They get to know you. So in those neighborhoods where we have high concentrations of Latinos and African American populations, if they don't want to live there, then they're going to have to seek out other employment from other law enforcement agencies if they want to be employed here in Oakland and also become part of the community. Because we know community policing is going to change radically, and one of the biggest change that needs to happen is that they have to become involved within the community that they're serving. And that's the biggest problem that we have, because these officers have no ties to the communities that they're policing. They have no involvement and no relationship with the neighborhoods. That's why our people are getting shot and killed and beaten and injured, abused like you wouldn't believe. And then we need to work on the criminal justice system. So that's a whole another subject. But back to where we're at, and in path housing for sanctuary, that covers a lot of really important folks here, and so we bring the teachers back in close to the communities. We bring medical back into the communities, and one of the benefits that I have for these tiny home communities, we're going to allow a health care unit inside of each of these tiny home villages. They're not going to be the typical clinic that you may be used to. In fact, most of these are going to be holistic clinics. Yeah. You're going to see herbalists, you're going to see doctors in various callings. And I've worked with a lot of them, and many of them are excellent. And this is alternative medicine that Western medicine refuses to acknowledge. There's a lot of good things in holistic medicine, and it covers a lot of ailments that we deal with today. And the reason why I like holistic is because of the medications and the prescriptions that an herbalist may prescribe to you. One of the biggest is if you're noticing Western medicine these days, Western medicine is getting very toxic. And what I mean by that, the side effects. You listen to the side effects on a lot of these medications now, and it's becoming more and more common that the side effect is death. Yeah, so that's not a good side effect. And so that's why I really like the herbalists and also holistic medicine. It's helped me greatly through my cancer. It's helped to stabilize my weight and eating habits, also pain management. So there's a lot of really good benefits from holistic medicine, and that gets addressed in the tiny home villages should they elect to have a health center on site. But that's one of the options that we really encourage for those tiny home villages. And the reason why I like that also is that it puts medicine closer to the neighborhood. For not everybody agrees with Western medicine, and so these are alternatives that are possible. But yet in the health center, we're still going to have a nurse practitioner that will be available, maybe not every day, but it'll be on scheduled days. And so we'll have that. And then also we may be able to hook up certain other aspects of the healthcare system into that, which I'm currently working on with some of the administrations that I'm associated with. So we're working on adding some of those into those HOAs. So we want to incorporate school teachers. We want to incorporate especially brand new medical personnel, new doctors, first-year nurses, because they don't make a whole lot of money, and they are important people for our community. But then we have firefighters. We need to have firefighters to put out fires, and if we can have them living, close by, then we can also feel a little more rest assured that we have somebody who can give us tips and information on fire prevention, on how to stay safer in the neighborhoods, and also a lot of them are trained in CPR, so you have a medical aspect with this too. So there's a lot of great things by bringing in these HOAs that of PATH. And the benefit is, one of the biggest benefits is that these homes are really plug and play. The whole layout of everything is pretty standardized. All the homes, all the tiny homes are placed on platforms. Your platform is what you're responsible for. Anything off of that platform, you're not responsible for, and that becomes common area of the HOA. And you're going to be paying some fees, which will be very reasonable. Again, like I said, for $500, you're going to be able to not only have a home for the rest of your life, you're going to pay for that home in 12 years or less. That's 144 payments maximum. And you're free and clear. You own the home free and clear. So these are all built out homes. Some are 2 stories. These are expandable. The model that I am using with arch cabins, these are incredible units. There's all steel exterior. There are 25 insulated, which you can increase. They're very portable. You can a couple or a small group can put these homes up very quickly in a matter of hours to days, depending on the size. And you have the option of how to finish out the interiors, laying out the interiors for your specific needs. If you have ADA requirements, this home can be completely built out to ADA requirements that you specify. So these are all going to be custom homes. You're going to be able to take them with you. Should you move, you can take them. These can be lifted up by, the forklifts that lift those big steel containers. They can pick them up and put them on a truck, and they can be transported. Again, like I said, these are all plug and play units. So they're standardized for where the plumbing comes in and out of the platforms, and they're all easily picked up, moved by trucks and with the special forklift. And I see this program as just the beginning, because there's a lot of great aspects to this. It cuts the cost of housing way down. Once you've paid off your home, in, let's say, a maximum of 12 years. So now whatever income you have, that's all you have. That's all you need. Your base expenses are covered. Only thing that you'll be paying for are your HOA fees that continue to go, but that pays for your services. Your hookup, your access, your trash, your insurance, a lot of different things. And so that's what the HOA fees cover. Also, you're going to be paying property tax just like everybody else, but instead of paying property tax that also includes the land you're not being charged for. So the land value has no relevance to the amount of tax that you're going to pay. You're only going to pay that 1% value of your home, which is pretty standard throughout most counties. It's 1%, and then in some counties it may go up to 1.2. When I last paid Alameda County taxes, I was paying 1.15. So you're in the 1% range. So you're still going to be paying a small property tax, but it's very reasonable. The nice thing about the home is, if you decide to sell it, you're not going to lose any money. Everything that you've put into that home when you go to sell it is what you're going to be able to get back. The only thing that about the home is that you're not going to gain a lot of value. It's not a capitalistic system. It's not based for profit. It's not a profit-based system. It's a housing-first system, and so you have to think of this differently. Everybody on the property has to own their home that they live in. There's no rentals. There's no family members unless they're underage and living as a registered resident of that unit. So there are some allowances, but again, it's strictly run. It's strictly and tightly regulated. There are rules and regulations, otherwise known as CC&Rs, Code of Conduct and Rules, that comes with every HOA. And every HOA is unique, and that's what makes HOAs fun. Sometimes you have some pretty questionable ones, but then for the most part, they run very well. They have a character and flavor that brings uniqueness to that community. And that's what we want. We want to preserve uniqueness of communities. And by going with this path plan, we preserve a lot of our past with path. Again, permanent access to housing. So you can move in and out of the path program all throughout your life. It's available to anybody and everybody in the city of Oakland, and depending on how much Alameda County participates, also for Alameda County. So these are all really good programs. And again, like I said, once you've paid off your home, other than the small fees that you're going to pay, you start developing wealth. That's where you can really develop wealth, because you no longer have a house payment. You have a small maintenance fee, essentially. But then the money that you make, you're able to save and buy the things that you want quicker, without credit. You can save that money very quickly. Imagine, having paid $500 a month for 12 years, paid off your home, own the home free and clear, but your maintenance fees are about $150. So that's $350 that you can go do something else with. You can save it, save it up enough, buy a brand new car, or buy your way into the capitalistic system. But the nice thing is that it allows you to build a savings so that you can buy the house in the old system free and clear. You can own that home. You have the ability to even with an ordinary income, you have the extraordinary ability to buy something beyond your typical means and own it. Own it free and clear. That's real wealth. That's real wealth. Not the fake wealth that we see from a lot of financial advisors. They have good advice for the most part, and usually it goes pretty well until something doesn't. When something doesn't, then it really is bad. And I'm an example of when things go bad. Here I lived a very comfortable life. I was retired. I had work options. I had a home out on the East Coast, boats, lifestyle, and then in one blink of an institution, my entire life was turned upside down, and it's never recovered. And in the capitalistic system that we have, even with the safeguards, you're not safe. But with PATH, you're always going to have housing, guaranteed housing. And so we've seen the importance of housing through the COVID crisis here, and it's not going to change. Every living being needs shelter. And so PATH guarantees you shelter. Doesn't matter where you are in life, doesn't matter what your wealth or lack of wealth is. If you have zero income, there are programs that will cover everything for you. So you have housing. Seniors are guaranteed housing. This is a program that is going to happen here in Oakland. And it's going to make a difference. This will make a difference. Instead of giving somebody $500, how about giving somebody the key to wealth? I'm proposing the city give you the key to wealth. And we're going to help you along the way. So that's PATH. Feel free to ask about PATH. For years, I've talked about my PATH plan. One of the elements that I'm leaving out currently is the cruise ship. You'll remember Rebecca Kaplan last year talking briefly, I believe it was around November, December, about a cruise ship program. Well, I've been talking about that exact same program since 2017. It's not my program. The program was first thought of and implemented right here in the San Francisco Bay Area by then San Francisco Mayor Art Agnos, right after the Loma Prieta earthquake. Art Agnos needed to find housing for 2,000 displaced people in the Tenderloin because of earthquake damage to buildings and buildings being red tagged. Fortunately, at the time, the U.S. Navy, which had just completed Fleet Week, offered a ship, 2,000 passenger ship. That was the beginning of the cruise ship program. And that's what I've been talking about right now, sitting out in our harbor, in outer harbor and also in the inner harbor. We have 3 cruise ships. You realize that there's 6,000 housing units on those ships? And with those ships, those are floating code compliant cities. Right now, the cruise industry, before COVID hit, there wasn't a cruise industry CEO that would talk to anybody about this program. But I did find 6 ships. I found 6 ships. Wasn't the capacity that I needed, but since COVID's hit and the world's been drastically altered. Cruise ship now, the cruise ship industry is looking for a way to recoup some of those, forever lost dollars, because it's going to be a while before the cruise ship industry really comes back. And so we see that these are opportunities that we have to use these for some really good ideas, not only as your final safety net housing, but also business incubation training, schools, hospitals, restaurants, hotels, and a whole host of other businesses that we've lost over the decades. We can now bring back, and they can afford a place to do business. So we're going to create an industry back in Oakland, entertainment, shopping, recreation, hospitality. So there are a lot of really great things. And before COVID, I was actually working with Oakland Planning Department on the placement. And the placement that I've been talking to Oakland with is Middle Harbor. Middle Harbor is an underutilized 101-acre open space. It used to be a military harbor. It was used by Military Sealift Command since World War II, and a little bit before that. How I know about that, the history of that, is because I used to walk on that base. My dad worked there at MSC, so I know all about the history. I know about the area. I know about the access of all the infrastructure that's needed. And in that zone, we can create a whole new floating community that would be absolutely incredible. And also, if you've listened to some of my videos in the past, I talk about emergency preparedness. These can also be used for emergencies to create fresh water, the offices of emergency services, FEMA, everything that we're going to need that we didn't have during the Loma Prieta earthquake, and then the things that we also lacked during the Oakland Hills fires. So these are things that we now will have a place to put things for emergency services that we can activate very quickly, and the cost would be much lower than what they've anticipated. So that's one of the missing elements to the entire PATH plan, because that's where the PATH absolutely, that's your worst case scenario, is landing on one of the floating community ships. That's your absolute worst. And a lot of people have concerns about the ventilation system. Well, those are going to be upgraded to HEPA, HEPA. Those catch virus. So those are very safe. I've worked with them in the past, installed them in clean rooms throughout high-tech industry, so I know the system very well. I'm trained in a lot of different things, and so I bring a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge to the table that this current administration and no administration in the past here in Oakland has ever had. I work with a lot of federal agencies, so I stay connected to a lot of people. And these are things that I bring to Oakland, bring to the table. Some of the folks that I know that work alongside on some of these projects, I know they're going to be running against me, like Rebecca Kaplan. I fully expect Rebecca to be running against me in 2022. And highly likely, Nikki Fornutato Bass is going to throw her hat in also. And as always, we have the constants. The constant that we normally see run is Cat Brooks out of West Oakland. So I fully expect Cat Brooks to run. So those are some of the people that I know are going to run, or highly likely to run, I should say. And I fully welcome them. And together, if we're all working in the same direction, we all win. Literally, we all win. And there are no losers in that type of election, because right now here in Oakland, it's sad to think about the amount of harm that's come to this community over the decades. And I've been through it all. I lived through the construction in East Oakland with the Coliseum and losing of Section 8 housing, a whole development being destroyed for the sake of the Oakland Coliseum. And a lot of Section 8 housing folks were displaced without any regard to where they may end up. There were financial promises made to Oakland, and none of them were ever fulfilled. They think they did, but they really didn't. I mean, you look at East Oakland right now, and you see the poverty. East Oakland is the poorest section of Oakland. District 7 is the absolute poorest section of Oakland. I live in it. I see it. I live with these folks, so I know what the struggle is, and I know how hard they work, and their tears, their pain, and it's inflicted in many different forms, from financial to just walking outside the door, seeing a cop pass by in a car, to the gangs that roam the streets, and the diseases that flowed through our communities, and a whole host of other things. And these are things that our administrators here in Oakland haven't dealt with. And I've been dealing with them here in Oakland since 2017. That's the path plan. It's reasonable. The folks, the property is there. We already have this in our city charter. Right now in the city charter, we're allowed 2 of these HOAs in every district here throughout Oakland. So we have 7 districts, that's 14 tiny home HOAs that can go in right now. We just need the will of the administration to put these in place. Also, I'm working on a separate homeless housing plan out by the Coliseum. So I'm still working on that aspect. And that's a whole different project. That's not even part of the tiny home HOAs here in Oakland. But that's how involved I am with housing and how important housing is to me, because I know that by housing those who really need it, that have the greatest need, I help them, but I also help myself. So that's how things are rolling here, and I hope you support this. Talk to your city leaders. This is a great plan that can work here, not only in Oakland, but anywhere in the United States. I don't hold any grudges with Libby. I just wish that she would at least sit down and let's talk about this, because a lot of folks been asking me, well, you're running for the money because of the pay. I said, I really don't care about the pay because, well, I do kind of care about the pay because I want to live here in Oakland. And in the current situation and with current administration and the future administration without me, I will never have a home here in Oakland, as that will be the same for the majority of Oakland, especially our black and brown communities. Because the way that gentrification is going here, and if Dave Cavall is allowed to take over the Howard Terminal, it's going to be a disaster here for Oakland. It is literally going to be a disaster for Oakland. So I hope you support me. PATH can work. It's very low cost. It's effective. It works. It builds on housing first model, and we include healthcare with that model, and we cut the cost of housing. We have a non-competitive system competing against a capitalistic system, and so it's going to shake out to whatever it shakes out. But at least the folks who are the most affected are going to have a place to call home. Thanks a lot, folks. We'll be right back.